Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we're actually taking a look at Gran Turismo 2. This is actually a sequel to pretty much the greatest racing game and best selling racing game of all time, which is Gran Turismo. So this was released roughly just over a year or so after the release of the original title, around 1999, the early 2000s, and this here was actually pretty much a major expansion on what was already an incredible title to begin with. It actually had slightly enhanced graphics because, as we all know, Gran Turismo 1 actually had some of the best graphics, if not the best graphics ever seen on the PlayStation console. And this actually kept to that element, and it actually improved on that, so it really showed the graphical quality of the PlayStation 1. It shows what was even possible back then, and even when you look at it now today, it still holds up really well. It's still as good looking today as it's ever been. So this year definitely was a vast, even more so across the board improvement on the original title. It didn't sell as many titles as the original game. The original game is still considered to be the best selling racing game of all time on any console because it sold well over 9 million, if not nearly 10 million copies during its lifespan. And this here actually was a very well put together sequel, and it actually is just as good as the original in a lot of cases. It expands on it in so many different ways. It actually has more tracks. It has a lot more cars. I think there's like I think the first game had over 300 cars in it. This one here has over 600 cars, which was actually quite incredible considering that they were able to pack so much information onto pretty much the PlayStation discs at that time, and to have it as good a quality as it is quite incredible. So it shows what really was possible back in the day. So you had access to a lot more style of cars that were correct for that time period, kind of like a lot of more later or up to date at that point cars. You had the likes of the Mitsubishi, the Evo 5 and Evo 6, as you can see here, it's driving on screen. You also had access to pretty much what is one of the all-time great cars ever made that came out of Japan, which is the Nissan Skyline R34 GTR, and the price of that alone has actually gone through the roof in terms of its value over the last number of years. And these games, like I mentioned in my previous video on the original Gran Turismo, I'll leave a link down in the description so that you can go check it out if you haven't watched it already. This series of games during this time period showcased a lot of popularity, but not only that, it actually showed a lot of us over in Europe and so forth. It made us completely aware of all these sports cars and saloons and these incredible and well built popular cars that we probably never would have heard of. You would have seen them around. I do remember explaining this, that you seen them around, people would have had a few of them, but you're like, what is that? What is it about? You had no idea. But then to actually see it in this game, and then to actually have a background history into the making of the car, really is incredible to show what it's about, and you're like thinking to yourself, oh, this is what it is. So this here game just kind of expanded on that from the original game. Not only was it a very playable and unique and high quality game, it was also pretty much an educational experience in terms of cars, so it is quite unique. Also, with the incredible amount of information that was provided in the game actually ended up being split up into two separate discs or CDs, and the main reason behind this is because, again, it had a wealth of cars and tracks and so forth, but they wanted to cater for different kind of variations. They had one disc was for the arcade element, so if you were more into arcade style racing, that would cater for that. But then on the other side you had more of the simulation style, so it made the game a bit more realistic. Plus it actually had the main elements of what was in the original game, where you could actually go through the campaign and have a mixture of different elements, from upgrading your cars to competing in different championships, so forth, so that you can upgrade, buy new cars and just see natural progression. So there was a lot there to pretty much cater for loads of different audiences. So there was. Another cool thing as well about the game is, like the first game, it also had an original and pretty cool soundtrack that kind of tied in really well to the game. And even though it is fantastic soundtrack, in my opinion, compared to and even later games in the series, the first game in the series, in my opinion, still houses the best soundtrack for any racing game within the Gran Turismo series. And it's actually, in my opinion as well, the original Gran Turismo has one of the best soundtracks ever in any video game. It really does. It really just suits the whole aesthetic of the game. But the second one does offer a really, really good solid soundtrack as well, so it does kind of tie in well with what's going on in the game. So definitely, even likes of the handling characteristics are definitely very notable in the second game as well, in terms of the different types of manufacturers and so forth. The cars handle very, very differently, and at that time period they also had access to a lot more of the newer, more advanced cars as well. Like I mentioned previously, like with the Mitsubishi Evos, even Subaru, the STIs, WRXs, and all those type of cars. It even had a lot more concept cars as well, and specific race cars that you can unlock through the likes of normal play. Even you could unlock really, really fast versions of like drag strip racing cars. There was even modified versions of the Nissan Skyline that you could get, where in Japan they used to do competitions where they would heavily modify it for the likes of drag racing, and you could actually modify it to a point where you could actually have like up to or over 1,000 horsepower, which at that time was quite unheard of, to actually have a car to actually have so much power in it. Now mind you, if you'd have to play through most of the campaign to be able to have access to unlock it, and if you did, you could win races very easily, but the problem was the handling of the car was very, very weak, because the car was primarily set up literally for the likes of drag strip racing. And then there was also, you could do like racing on the Pikes Peak, the well-known Pikes Peak circuit, and you could drive a racing car like a heavily modified Suzuki. I can't remember, was it the actual Suzuki Escudo or something like that? I can't remember the name of it. You can let me know down in the comments, but that thing was just insane. Again, it was built more for rally and kind of like all that kind of hilltop kind of mountain climbing racing. But if you got your hands on that car, you would breeze through most of the races in the game. Another cool feature that the game offered as well, compared to the first game, it also presented its own rally style events as well. It had its own rally mode in the game, and it was a unique concept. It really was. It actually played really well, but it wasn't as good in my opinion compared to the likes of other style rally games that were already out at that time, likes of the Colin McRae series, because they were more tuned into proper rally. This year was kind of more like it kind of had the same feel and vibe. It tried to make simulation, but it also tried to have the same kind of vibe, more like the tracks were very like Sega Rally, in my opinion. That's kind of the way they actually did it. It was a bit fiddly because it definitely altered the handling characteristics of the car, and it was, at the time when I look back, it was actually difficult to try and get used to driving on the tarmac and normal tracks, and then to literally jump into rally mode. You'd be all over the place. You'd be hitting every wall, every bump, every corner would throw you off, because you'd no traction, and if you weren't used to the handling physics of the car, it could be difficult. But it was very fun, and actually, if anything, because there's not too many rally games on the PlayStation, so it is worthwhile actually enjoying it if you are into rally games. Plus, when you look at the graphics are incredible on it. Even to this day, it still holds out. It's still a fantastic piece of art, basically, in my opinion. You know, that's well worth playing today still. So if you haven't played Gran Turismo 2, I really do highly recommend that you try out the series and definitely give this a go, for sure. Just for all the elements it has, because there's so much here for everybody, pretty much, so there is. So I'd like to know your thoughts on Gran Turismo 2. Have you played it? Do you think it's as good as its predecessor, the original Gran Turismo? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? Make sure to let me know down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future content, and also feel free to share the video, because I am going to be re-exploring a lot of these old classic games and sharing my thoughts and opinions with everybody here. and just playing just racing games in general, because there's so many racing games on the PlayStation that I've even yet to explore, and I can't wait to actually get stuck into them as well. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.